The seismic shift at Hollis Hall. Hold on tight, Bears Nation, because what is happening right now in the heart of Chicago is nothing short of seismic. We are witnessing a franchise that is quietly, methodically, and with absolute cold-blooded intention building something this city has not seen in decades. Minicamp has just wrapped up, and the tea spilling out of Hollis Hall is enough to fill Lake Michigan twice over. We have Caleb Williams staring down a financial future that could completely rewrite the NFL history books. We have 3 players walking on ice so thin you can already hear it cracking beneath their cleats. Meanwhile, 2 under-the-radar Bears are quietly preparing to explode onto the national scene in a way nobody saw coming. And to top it all off, Sports Illustrated just handed Chicago a compliment so backhanded it almost felt like a slap in the face. Except when you read between the lines, it isn't an insult at all. It is a war cry. Welcome to Chicago Bears Voice, the only place where we give you everything about the monsters of the Midway with zero sugarcoating and maximum energy. Let's get straight into it. Let us start where the money is, because in the National Football League, the money always tells the absolute truth. Mike Florio, one of the most plugged-in, respected football insiders on the planet, dropped an absolute bomb that has Bears fans either pumping their fists in celebration or clutching their pearls in pure panic. It all depends on how you feel about paying astronomical numbers for a franchise quarterback. According to Florio, when the time inevitably comes for Caleb Williams to sign his next mega contract extension, the singular number driving that entire conversation is going to be the Patrick Mahomes number. Let that sink into your mind for just a moment. Think about Patrick Mahomes, the man who already has 3 Super Bowl rings sitting in his trophy case. The guy who plays quarterback like he has a cheat code permanently installed in his brain. His current contract runs all the way out to 2033, with a base salary climbing toward $39 million per year, and a staggering salary cap hit next season of $90 million after restructuring. That is the mountain Caleb Williams is looking at. And Florio is explicitly saying that Caleb and his camp are going to use that exact deal as their North Star the moment negotiations begin. Now, before anybody starts hyperventilating into a paper bag, let us be completely clear about what this actually means in practice. Nobody, not even the most wildly optimistic person working inside Hollis Hall, expects the Bears to hand Caleb Williams a Mahomes-level deal dollar for dollar right out of the gate. What Florio is really revealing to us is that the Mahomes contract sets the ultimate ceiling for the conversation. Williams intends to negotiate from the top down rather than the bottom up. The realistic projection for Caleb Williams' next extension actually lands somewhere in that $18 to $25 million range as a base, before you factor in all the complex bonus structures, signing money, and performance incentives that modern quarterback contracts are built upon. Even at that projection, we are talking about a massive, franchise-altering financial commitment. And here's the part that makes it even more consequential for the Chicago Bears specifically. This isn't happening in a vacuum. There is a deep, strategic reason why the Chicago Bears did not make those flashy blockbuster free agent moves that so many fans were desperately screaming for this past offseason. Yes, we are talking about the Max Crosby chase that never actually materialized. The front office didn't bite because Ryan Poles has been quietly, patiently building a massive war chest for 2 enormous contract extensions. Caleb Williams is obviously number 1, but Darnell Wright, the young offensive tackle who has been quietly transforming into one of the most dominant forces at his position in the NFC, is the other. These 2 looming deals are going to completely reshape the entire financial landscape of this roster for years to come. Every single roster decision the Bears make from this exact point forward has to be viewed through that financial lens. Hashtag the price of greatness. Florio also added an incredibly interesting detail about the timing of these talks. His reporting suggests that Williams and his representatives are going to want to move on an extension promptly after the regular season concludes. Specifically, they want to sit down right after the Bears face the Vikings in Week 18, rather than waiting until after a potential postseason run comes to an end. Now, from a pure fan perspective, that detail is a little bit uncomfortable to sit with. Nobody wants intense contract negotiations bleeding into playoff preparation when the stakes are at an all-time high. But if you read between the lines of who Caleb Williams is as a competitor and how incredibly locked in he appears to be, it is genuinely hard to imagine this kid letting dollar signs distract him when there is football to be played. The guy possesses that rare, legendary mentality. The contract talk is strictly agent business. When the whistle blows, Caleb Williams is a football player first, last, and always. So, what does Williams actually need to do on the field to fully earn that astronomical number and make this decision a complete no-brainer for the Bears organization? The checklist is demanding, but it is entirely within his reach. First, that completion percentage has to climb. Caleb needs to operate consistently in that 62 to 64% range to silence the remaining skeptics and validate this massive investment. Jeremy Fowler of ESPN has already gone on record stating that the NFL inner circles recognize Williams as a top 10 quarterback right now. Getting that completion percentage into elite territory makes that label permanent rather than provisional. Second, the raw production numbers need to reflect elite-level dominance. The possibility of Caleb Williams throwing for 4,500 yards and 30 touchdowns this season is not a wild fantasy. It is a highly realistic projection given the devastating arsenal of weapons surrounding him and the brilliant offensive system that Ben Johnson has constructed. And finally, the third checklist item is the big one. The Bears need another playoff win. Last season proved to the world that this team belongs in the conversation. This upcoming season has to prove they are absolutely not going anywhere. This is what makes the current quarterback conversation feel so incredibly different from the tragic Bears quarterback sagas of our past. Caleb Williams has already shattered multiple Chicago Bears passing records in just 2 seasons. He isn't a developmental project anymore. He isn't a frustrating question mark. He is a superstar on a rocket ship trajectory, and the only real debate left is how fast that trajectory climbs and how high that ceiling actually goes. The Bears are no longer building towards something distant. They are building directly on top of something real, stable, and powerful. That turns a terrifying contract conversation into something incredibly exciting. Production like this requires an unbelievable amount of behind-the-scenes hustle. Before we pivot to the players fighting for their careers, I want to take a brief moment to speak directly to you, our incredible community. We put an immense amount of hard work, sleepless nights, and deep dedication into producing cinematic documentaries like this for the channel. Our true goal is to bring you the highest quality, most emotionally gripping Bears content on the internet. Every single subscription we receive acts as a massive wave of motivation for us to keep pushing harder. If you appreciate the dedication that goes into these videos, please take 1 second right now to hit that subscribe button, smash the like button, share this video with your fellow Bears fans, and leave a comment below. Let's keep growing this incredible community together. #Walking on Thin Ice. While the stars are rising, the brutal reality of the NFL means that not everybody inside that building is on their way up. Let us turn our attention to the cold side of the ledger. We need to talk about the players to whom minicamp may have just quietly served their walking papers, even if management hasn't officially pulled the trigger just yet. The very first name on our roster cut watch list is Roschon Johnson. Look, this isn't about piling on a young man who has shown real flashes of talent and immense heart at various points in his young career. But the NFL is an unforgiving business of cold, hard realities. And the reality for Roschon Johnson is that the Chicago Bears backfield has completely passed him by. DeAndre Swift is locked in as the dynamic leader, Kyle Mooney is firmly entrenched, and now Coleman Bennett has stepped onto the field and demonstrated absolutely everything that Johnson was originally supposed to bring to the table. Except Bennett is doing it without the nagging injury history that has plagued Johnson throughout his entire tenure in Chicago, and without the heavier price tag that comes with keeping a veteran on the roster purely for depth. When you look back at the 2025 season, Johnson was only healthy enough to appear in 7 games. He finished the year with a mere 2 carries for 17 yards. Think about that. His total tackle numbers on special teams actually outpaced his offensive contributions. That tells you everything you will ever need to know about where he currently stands in the coach's pecking order. The raw potential was always there, but the production never matched it. Now, younger, hungrier, healthier players have leaped ahead of him at every single turn. It is a tough pill to swallow, but Roschon Johnson is a Chicago Bear who may very well have played his last snap in a uniform before training camp even reaches its conclusion. The second name on this dangerous list is Kieran Amegadjie, and this one stings the heart a little bit differently. His situation reflects a much larger, historical pattern of offensive line mismanagement that this front office has been working tirelessly to correct. Amegadjie was a prized third-round draft pick. That means real, valuable draft capital was spent on this young man, and heavy expectations were attached to his shoulders from day one. But the on-field reality is that he has been passed up repeatedly and comprehensively by players who were brought into the building long after him. Aviante Collins came in and moved right ahead of him on the depth chart. Theo Benedict came in and moved ahead of him as well. Now Ja'Tyre Carter is in the building, and health permitting, he is on track to move ahead of him too. Amegadjie undeniably possesses the physical tools to play both guard and tackle, but there has reportedly been no single position on this offensive line where he has been able to assert his dominance and say, "This spot belongs to me." That is a brutal, lonely place to be as a young lineman. Unless someone unfortunately gets injured ahead of him, or he absolutely lights up training camp in a way we have never witnessed before, Kieran Amegadjie is going to become another tragic chapter in the story of how Ryan Poles gradually learned how to evaluate and acquire true offensive line talent. The early chapters of that story were incredibly rough, and Amegadjie might just be the final footnote in that painful section. That brings us to the third name on our list, James Lynch. In many ways, this situation is the most straightforward and predictable of the three. Lynch was signed to a modest one-year deal in the off-season. That is the exact kind of contract that comes with an implicit, unwritten understanding. It is a temporary bridge deal, not a long-term commitment. The problem for Lynch is that the Bears' defensive line is getting deeper, faster, and significantly more talented all around him. Grady Jarrett and Gervon Dexter are the undisputed, locked-in starters. Neville Gallimore is rapidly carving out a violent, defined role for himself. Kentavious Street brings a level of elite versatility that makes him infinitely more valuable than a standard one-dimensional lineman. And if Jaden Vandenberg is even close to being as ready to contribute as the coaching staff reportedly believes behind closed doors, Lynch falls even further down into the depth chart abyss. His analytical grade from last season was a disappointing 53, ranking him 87th out of 134 defensive linemen evaluated across the league. On a football team that desperately needs to transform and improve its defense, those numbers simply do not make a compelling case for a precious roster spot. Lynch has 5 years of solid NFL experience and appeared in 17 games with the Titans last year, so he will certainly land on his feet somewhere in this league. It just increasingly looks like that somewhere will not be the city of Chicago. Hashtag the breakout stars. Now, let us flip the script entirely. Let's inject some pure hope and adrenaline back into this story, because the exact same minicamp that put those 3 veterans on notice also completely illuminated 2 young players who look like they are about to have genuinely historic, breakout seasons for this franchise. The first name you need to burn into your memory is Austin Booker. If the Bears' offseason decisions tell you anything about their internal philosophy, they tell you that this organization believes in Booker in a massive way. Just think about the narrative of the last few months. The Bears did not go out and aggressively chase high-priced veteran edge rushers in free agency. They didn't spend premium draft capital to bring in an elite pass rusher from college. Instead, Ryan Poles looked directly at his existing roster and made a calculated, high-stakes bet that what they already have in-house is more than enough. That massive bet is built almost entirely on the expectation that Austin Booker is taking a monumental leap forward in his development right now. The flashes of brilliance were clearly there last season. The raw athletic ability was never up for debate. But this is the year the Chicago Bears desperately need those fleeting flashes to ignite into a sustained, roaring fire. If you run the mathematical projections, you can see exactly why Booker matters so much to the destiny of this defense. If Montez Sweat goes out and commands double teams to secure 10 sacks, and Austin Booker emerges alongside him to hunt down another 9 or 10 sacks of his own, look at what happens to the interior. Gervon Dexter can easily add another 7.5, while a healthy Grady Jarrett chips in 5 or 6. Suddenly, you are looking at a defensive line that generates 26 to 27 sacks entirely by themselves. That number alone would almost match the total collective team sack output from the entire previous season. That is the exact kind of statistical leap that completely alters a defense's identity from passive to predatory. Austin Booker making that sophomore jump isn't just a feel-good personal story for him, it is potentially transformational for the entire trajectory of the Chicago Bears. The second player poised to shock the league is Kyler Bryant. The safety, not the legend, though the name certainly carries its own historic weight in this city. Bryant arrived in Chicago as one of the most intriguing, under-the-radar free agent signings of the entire offseason. He is a proven Super Bowl champion who brings an invaluable playoff pedigree and a rare brand of professional veteran maturity that you simply cannot coach or replicate. What the Bears coaching staff has reportedly witnessed from Bryant during these intense minicamp sessions aligns flawlessly with the high expectations they had when they put pen to paper on his contract. When you pair his football IQ with the raw, explosive talent of Dylan Thiemann at the safety position, you suddenly possess a secondary combination that is going to present a nightmare puzzle for opposing offensive coordinators. Let's be honest, the Bears' defense has been the stressful question mark hanging over this entire rebuilding process for the better part of 2 seasons now. If this newly formed safety tandem of Bryant and Thiemann can truly anchor the back end, disguise coverages, and hold the roof down, it takes an enormous amount of physical pressure off the front seven and the young cornerbacks. It creates the kind of fierce, consistent defensive identity that this historic franchise has been chasing for years. Kyler Bryant is one of those crucial football additions whose impact might not always light up the fantasy football box scores, but whose physical presence is deeply felt across an entire 16-game season in the way games are managed, mistakes are minimized, and critical third-down situations are executed. Hashtag a new era in the Windy City. This brings us to the ultimate big-picture reality. The 30,000-foot view of what this Chicago Bears team is truly becoming and where they are headed in the grand scheme of the NFL. Sports Illustrated stepped up recently to weigh in on the situation, delivering a comprehensive national outlook that is worth unpacking with extreme care. Their expert analytical assessment concluded that Chicago was within a mere player or two of reaching the NFC Championship game last season. Think about how close that is. They strongly believe this roster should improve exponentially with the continued natural development of Caleb Williams, Rome Odunze, Keenan Allen, Cole Kmet, and the rest of the powerhouse offensive infrastructure. Now, they did fairly note that the defense remains the primary area of national concern, pointing out that the unit ranked 29th in yards allowed and 23rd in points allowed last season under the defensive guidance of coordinator Dennis Allen. But their ultimate conclusion is the exact part that every single person in Bears Nation needs to read, reread, and tattoo onto their brain. According to Sports Illustrated, the Chicago Bears are currently talented enough to challenge absolutely any team in the entire NFC, with one singular notable exception. The only team they exempted from that bold claim is the Los Angeles Rams, whom they described as the one roster that genuinely separates itself from the rest of the conference. Everyone else? The national media believes the Bears can look them in the eye and beat them on any given Sunday. That is a massive statement. This isn't a local sports blog hyping up the home team. This is Sports Illustrated, one of the most widely read, historic sports publications on Earth, essentially announcing to the football world that the Chicago Bears have officially arrived as a legitimate, terrifying NFC contender. The narrative has completely shifted. They are no longer a cute rebuilding story. They are no longer a feel-good, heartwarming tale about a historic franchise slowly trying to find its footing after years in the wilderness. They are a lethal football team armed with a true franchise quarterback on an ascending superstar trajectory. They have a brilliant head coach in Ben Johnson, who stands as one of the most creative, aggressive offensive minds in the modern game. They possess a defense that has the young pieces and motivation to improve significantly, and they are fueled by a deep collective hunger that has been building up in the soul of this city for over 20 long years. Make no mistake about it. This is absolutely not Matt Eberflus's Bears anymore. This is not the tragic franchise that spent half a decade cycling hopelessly through washed-up quarterbacks, uninspired offensive coordinators, and outdated defensive schemes that never quite fit the personnel. This is something entirely new, something built with cold, calculated intention. This is a group that has already proven it can step onto the field and compete at the highest level of professional sports, and they are now standing in the locker room asking themselves exactly how far that competition can go. We already know that the hardest, most brutal strength of schedule in the entire league awaits them in this 2026 season. And to that we say, good. Let them come. Let them all come down to the lakefront. Because there ain't nothing sweet in the city of Chicago. The Bears do not need to play flawless, perfect football every single week to shock the world this season. They simply need a defense that plays somewhere between 14th and 16th in the league, while the powerhouse offense, completely unlocked by Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson's futuristic system, does exactly what we now fully expect it to do and becomes elite. If they hit those realistic benchmarks, if they stay healthy in the right positions, and if they get those explosive, game-changing contributions from Austin Booker and Kyler Bryant that all the training camp data points toward. This team won't just be competing for a wildcard spot. This team won't just be fighting for an NFC championship. This team is going to be actively threatening for something much, much bigger. That is the absolute, unvarnished reality of where the Chicago Bears stand right now coming out of minicamp. Caleb Williams is calmly approaching a historic conversation about the most valuable contract in the history of the sport. 3 veterans are fighting for their absolute roster lives, and the tragic odds are heavily stacked against them. 2 under-the-radar defensive weapons are poised to completely rewrite the defensive narrative for this franchise. And the national media is quietly, reluctantly, but unmistakably acknowledging that Chicago is finally built for something truly special. Bears Nation. We have been waiting a long, painful time to feel this exact way. Do not take this moment for granted. Cherish and enjoy every single second of the storm that is coming. As we cross the finish line of this documentary, we want to remind you once again that bringing these deep dive stories to life takes an incredible amount of daily grind and passion. We do it all for the love of the game and the love of this city. Every single subscription, like, and share is the fuel that keeps Chicago Bears' voice alive and running at maximum energy. If you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button right now, turn on those notifications, and join our growing family. Now, the microphone belongs to you. We need to hear your voices right now, down in the comments. What do you honestly think Caleb Williams' next contract is going to look like when the ink finally dries? Do you think his camp can actually blow right past that $25 million ceiling and demand Mahomes money? Which of the 3 players we discussed do you think is getting cut before training camp even comes to an end? And finally, who is the hidden, under-the-radar Bear that you see breaking out this season that absolutely nobody else in the national media is talking about? Let us know your thoughts, your wildest predictions, and your hottest takes. This is your community, this is your channel, and we read every single word. Thank you for riding with us. Chi-Town up, Bear down, let's go get it.